Hello and welcome to Gegenpressing. This is the reaction video to yet another Bayern Munich title win. I'm Manu Feth, this is Stefan Bienkowski, and Stefan, Bayern have done it. They've done the impossible. They win the Bundesliga title thanks to goal differential. And yet another Borussia Dortmund muck up. We get to talk about Borussia Dortmund a lot, I think, in the main show on Monday. So this is really just a quick reaction video, as promised, about whoever's going to win the title, and in this case it's Bayern Munich. But Stefan, even in their title win, they managed to make it about stuff that's not on the field but off the field. In the middle of the game, the cameras always look to the boxes where CEO Oliver Kahn and sporting director Hasan Salihamidzic for the longest time sat together, increasingly not sitting together. Today, Oliver Kahn not being there at all, Hasan Salihamidzic in a private box. And then the word came out that Bayern Munich had released Oliver Kahn, and then it went from having released just Oliver Kahn to actually having, unceremoniously sacked them both. And, while the players are celebrating, my favorite reaction was Thomas Müller getting stuck a microphone underneath the nose literally minutes after he's won the title and being asked about both the sporting director and the CEO being sacked. And he was just absolutely baffled. Stefan, this is crazy. Which other club in the world does this? Where they sack the decision makers despite them winning the title. I think maybe it comes a little bit down to them not maybe thinking that they would, but still, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, you can understand, as crazy as it was, you can kind of understand the decision behind it because, this season has not been a classic. Bayern have not been good enough. Yes, they win the title, stumble over the line, finish on goal difference above Dortmund, and as we all know, at Bayern, like second is simply not good enough. But finishing level on points with Dortmund is also absolutely not good enough.
No.
And the heads had to roll, and they already sacked the head coach a few months ago. They tried that option, did not work. So the next option is to pick on the guys who built the squad, basically. And I actually think it's probably the right decision. It's obviously quite maybe a little unfair the way they did it. Both Salihamidzic and Oliver Kahn had to take to Twitter. Kahn in particular, basically saying he was banned from going to the game, which is really quite something. We're talking about club legends here as well, not just guys working in technical roles. They're club legends at the club, being treated like that. So it's classic FC Hollywood here at Bayern Munich. But I think whether or not they should have been sacked in that manner is one thing. But I think the fact is that the fans would probably agree that the squad hasn't been put together properly. You look at the players that were brought in over the summer. A lot of money was spent this summer, but while De Ligt is done just about fine, Sadio Mane will go down as one of the biggest flops in recent Bundesliga history. I think. I think that's probably fair to say. The whole squad from top to bottom is creaking with older players or underperforming players. And, I think that game against Cologne summed up their season. They weren't good. A lesser team was playing around them quite comfortably. And they had to rely on Jamal Musiala to come on and kind of rescue the day. And that's what he has been doing for the vast majority of the season. So it's clear that even though Bayern won the title, things weren't going well. Things weren't doing well enough. And I think there's going to have to be a hard reset this summer, and I think that's probably what we're going to see. I think there's going to be a lot of activity, so that Bayern can maybe not ensure, but definitely work towards making sure that this kind of league campaign doesn't happen again, and they don't let Dortmund creep in as they did this season and almost won the title. Certainly should have won the title.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is Bayern to a T. This is why they're one of the biggest clubs in the world. It's why they're one of the most successful clubs in the world. They simply don't sit still, and let complacency take hold.
Yeah, they never roll it back, right? If something hasn't gone quite right. And I think they quite openly admit that the title was put in their laps by Borussia Dortmund. And I don't think they expected to win the title today. although it's Bayern Munich. I think that team never gives up until, the final whistle. Or as I said in the chat earlier today, until Marco Reus literally walks around with the trophy at the Borsig Platz. They believe that it's possible because that's what they are as a club. And I mean, it's a mentality that is very much missing with all the other German teams. I made the snippish remark that maybe my upbringing wasn't German, but Bavarian, and there's just a difference there. But, the thing is, I find the hard reset is coming, right? They will have to now find, Dresden is going to be the new CEO. He is the mastermind behind all the financial decisions that actually have gotten Bayern to the place where they are now. Poor guy was actually set to retire. So I guess that's not happening now. But I think it's actually going to be more interesting to see what's going to happen with Hasan Salihamidzic's role, right? The less technocratic and more hands-on role. And the word sort of is that Dresden, with the help of Karl-Heinz Rummenigge and Uli Hoeneß, they will be putting together the squad in the summer, right? And that is, I think, that's going to be really fascinating to watch how that's going to work out, right? Because as we said, there is significant holes all over this side. There is two important contract negotiations going on as well. One is with Alphonso Davies, the other one is with Jamal Musiala, and both of those camps had very close relationships with Hasan Salihamidzic. So what's going to happen with those contract negotiations? I think it's going to be really interesting. And I think those are two players that need to be kept, right, for this next Bayern Munich phase, whatever it's going to be. So I think what comes next, I think is really quite interesting. And we've seen Bayern Munich press the red button, a reset button, when they went from Nagelsmann to Tuchel. And it didn't really, it did work out, I guess, because they won the title, but it didn't feel like it was going to work out. And I'm actually kind of curious to see how this is going to work out, because this is the latest point that they have won the Bundesliga title. Like, usually around this time of the year, they're already signing players. And I'm really curious how that part is going to work out.
Yeah, the kind of minor, or the kind of what's the word? The kind of small print that was kind of put out in the reports is that, there's this new kind of hierarchy in charge, but also Thomas Tuchel will have some say in the squad building, and I wouldn't be surprised if what we get out of all this is that Tuchel actually has a stronger role in how that squad is put together next season. Of course, guys like Rummenigge, Hoeneß, these are big characters, big personalities at Bayern, but I think they probably also respect the fact that Tuchel will have strong opinions on what players should stick around, what players should be sold, what players to sign. Obviously last week we were talking about Declan Rice potentially joining the club because, Tuchel's such a big fan. So I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a stronger role in things, and that's maybe why we might see, Bayern really actually put a lot of work into this summer, spend a lot of money, sign a lot of players, sell a lot of players. And this might be the kind of proper transition and move away from the old squads that, Hansi Flick perhaps was managed to get the best out of towards a kind of new team. And that's when we might see some big names kind of move on. So it's probably exactly what Bayern Munich fans want after this kind of underwhelming season. It's what Bayern definitely need. And I guess that kind of is why we fall on this point where maybe it makes sense to Salihamidzic and Oliver Kahn move on, because there's no way for them to kind of stick around and admit that the squad that they had built simply wasn't good enough.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's really what they struggled with, rather than looking at the mistakes that they made. They fired Julian Nagelsmann, who they signed for a lot of money. It's going to be hugely fascinating, I think, this summer. And maybe also gives a little bit of hope to the likes of Borussia Dortmund, because it's also a period where they can do a lot of things right. But it's also a period where they can make a lot of mistakes. And I think it is something that is going to be maybe where other teams around the league are going to look at and say, oh, there's a lot of turmoil there, and it's probably going to continue for a while. It's going to keep us entertained, Stefan. We thought we had some time off now, and every time we think we have some time off, Bayern Munich throws a curveball. So, yeah, thanks for that, I guess. But I think that pretty much sums this up. We'll of course have our full podcast coming out on Monday, as always, and the post-mortems on the season. Just wanted to give you a really quick reaction show as promised. I hope you enjoyed the Twitter space earlier too. Check out the content that both of us produce for various platforms, and we'll be back soon. Stefan. And until then, auf Wiedersehen.